she's doing fine. I still recall a sad cafe, how it hurt so bad to see her crying. I didn't want to say goodbye. Send her my love, memories remain. Send her my love, roses never fail. Send her my love. Same old tale, same old room. I'm on the road again. She needed so much more than I could give. We knew our love could not pretend. Broken hearts can always mend. Send her my love, memories remain. Send her my love, roses never fail. Send her my love, calling out her name, I'm dreaming. Reflections of her face I'm seeing. It's her voice that keeps on holding me. Send her my love, roses never fade. Memories remain. Send her my love.
Hey everyone, Joe Carroll here. Excited to be with you guys today because I am going to accomplish a couple things that are things that I've really been looking forward to. And that is the release of SSL's 4KG channel strip, along with, if you remember, I have released a couple videos in recent months of a recreations of Journey, which is, of course, one of my favorite bands. I think it's one of almost everybody's favorite bands. Just a classic band, classic songs. And as many of you know, some really good friends of mine named Resurrection, which is a professional Journey tribute band. They travel the country recreating Journey concerts. So it's Resurrection, a Journey tribute, if you want to look them up online. Came to the studio a handful of months ago and laid down some great tracks. And if you haven't seen any of those yet, look back on my wall or on my page, and you'll see some of the other songs, and you can download those tracks. So there's 2 of them already up. This will be the 3rd one, and this is none other than Center My Love, as you heard on the opening of the video. But what you heard on the opening of the video was the finished product. What I want to do is we actually are recording this before this mix is done. So the mix that you just heard hasn't even been done yet. So we're going anti-chronological, if that's even a word. So what I'll do is I'll let you guys kind of hear the raw track, and of course we do already have some plugins inserted, but you'll see they're completely off basically. We are we getting a little sound from the VCA and the fader, just going through this circuit, yes, but it is going to be fairly minimal at this time, but nonetheless, I just kind of want you to hear the raw tracks. Ready?
It's been so long since I seen her face. You said she's doing fine. I still
Now I'll play just a little of the chorus raw.
send her my love. Memories remain. Send her my love.
Okay, you get the idea. A great raw recording, played excellent. Excellent. These guys play these songs all the time. They've worked really hard on their guitar tones, on their synth tones to cover these parts to where they can play it on stage and accurately recreate those sounds. And as you can hear, it's there. The singer even sounds remarkably like Steve Perry, which is not an easy thing to do. But you can also tell it's very raw, very unpolished, and it needs a lot of work. So we're going to dive in. And like I mentioned, kind of my thought of this video was we have a return of a classic here. We have the new SSL 4KG, which was just announced a couple weeks ago. And we have the recreation of another classic in this Journey song. So we have two classics that have come back to the forefront, this song and this plugin. So I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but we'll just talk about the original SSL console, 1978, I believe it was. Don't quote me on that. Was the 4000B, the 4KB, and it had a completely different architecture than the later 4KE and G and 9000, but a couple similarities as well. You had a Jensen transformer-based microphone preamplifier. You did have filters and a 4-band EQ, and you did have a channel strip compression and dynamics, or noise gate on every channel, which was a big deal at that time. It was the first console to do that. However, the dynamic section was more like that of the bus compressor, what became the bus compressor, where it's got a fixed attack of 30 milliseconds, just one attack time, a handful of release times, including the great auto that we've all came to know and love, but it's fixed ratios, just a few different ratios. Incredible circuit, very colored, very, very unique. It's its own deal. I think the EQ, I would call it soft. It likes to really be turned and used heavily, and it's kind of, I would almost say, fuzzy. Not in a bad way. I'm not talking about non-defined. I'm just talking about the character. And that was, I think, only like 11 of those consoles or 9 of those consoles were made before the 4KG, and this is, or I'm sorry, the 4KE, and this was as revolutionary as the B was, this was the big, really, really revolutionary guy that put it on the map and started spreading across studios all over the world and drove some other companies out of the studio world. It was just that dominant. And the EQ was entirely different. It sounded entirely different. And that's when we came to see the channel strip dynamics and the compressor, which is still very similar to the dynamic sections and even the modern duality consoles and the 9000s of the late 90s and the 2000s. So that's kind of when this type of channel strip compressor came into the fold. But now SSL has announced the 4KG plugin, and it's I would say, if this guy is muscular and gritty and aggressive, this guy is a little more refined, a little more polished, a little smoother. That's not to say it's better or worse. They're different characters, and that's what I love about having all of these tools at my disposal. And you'll see what I'm starting here with is the black knob, the 242 circuit, which is the same EQ. If we click this little button right here in the 4KE plugin, we have 3 different EQ flavors. We have the black knob, the brown knob, and the rare passive orange. But what I've done just for the sake of consistency, because this is kind of a I want this to be kind of a continuation of my Back to the Basics series, where we use one plugin to just kind of do mostly everything. But you'll find some progression in the Back to the Basics. From where we began, you'll see more tools, more routing, more things than where we left off. But I love the 242 black knob. But you will also see that we do have the pink knob, the 292 circuit, which sounds very, very different. But for me, what I like to do, what a lot of our favorite mixers did, is they had the G series frame, because most people loved the G series automation system. That's, like Bob Mountain, for example, and on and on and on. It was like a 4K G console with a lot of black knob strips. So you would see some pink knobs, but you'd see a lot of black knobs more than anything, because that's just the EQ that most people gravitate to first. But we do have both options. But the dynamics, like I said, it's a little smoother and a little more polished, refined, that kind of stuff. But this compressor sounds different than the 4KE. It's definitely it's even though it looks exactly the same, with selectable ratios, thresholds, release times being the same, with the 30 millisecond at its core, or engaging the fast knob and being 1 millisecond, it seems like it's the same thing, but it really does sound differently. Which is really, really cool. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to bypass these, make them inactive, because that's not really what I want to talk about. What I want to talk about is this song and how to make it sound great using a simple approach. So what we have all our drums here routed to this drum fader. But one thing that we do we are working in, and I think I had this in my last Back to the Basics video as well, is we have a parallel squisher track, aux send, that's feeding this guy right here with an 1176 on it. So we can get a little extra sustain and smack out of some of the drums if we want to. And I have already laid in a couple samples from where we left off on the raw recording, just because I think it needed it, and I think it'll sound better with it. So the bass, you'll see, is also going to D&B. So all the drums and the bass are being summed to one stereo fader that's treated with a little extra compression, saturation, and EQ. Our next tracks, not our, that's a pirate's favorite word, right? Our favorite letter, they say. We have our guitars and pianos, and we just have one electric pass on this in stereo. And these are all routed to G and K, so they are hitting their own fader right here. See, G and K and D and B. So that's drums and bass, guitars and keys. And all my vocals right here in red are hitting the Vox fader. And what that allows me to do is put a little, tie my vocal group together with compression. In our first, where we started off on the Back to the Basics series, was everything hitting the stereo bus, and one compressor being the SSL bus compressor handling everything. And that's a great approach. There's nothing wrong with that. But I much prefer, when I can, and the way I work in my template every day, is these subgroups that come up that are treated differently. So my drums and bass have a little bit of Shadow Hills. My guitar and keys generally has a little bit of variable mu, like from SPL, from Plugin Alliance. Maybe a little EQ from a Pultec, or whatever the case may be. So I just want you guys to know that this is kind of progressing into a more advanced level of Back to the Basics. All right, so let's just dive in. I'm going to mute the vocals, and we're going to focus on the band for a minute. And I will tell you right away, I just listened to the Journey track, the original, and what a great song. But I'm not going to attempt to copy that at all. I may use a little more reverb than we would use on modern rock, just kind of as a throwback nod to Journey. But as far as like, hey, I'm going to try to match that exact reverb sound, exact reverb level, the tone of the snare drum, screw that. I'm not interested in that. I just want to make this fun and great for everyone. So let's just dive in, and we will see, as part of our Back to the Basics series, remember how we were making sure, that's the wrong thing. We were making sure that the kick drums alone were getting our hitting our stereo bus between 7 and 5 here. Okay, you'll see I'm hitting 6 on my peaks, which should be great by the time I add, samples and parallel compression and vocals on top of it, that's going to put me near analog 0, which is a great spot to start. All right, so let's just dive in here. I'm gonna start with, as part of the, remember, you're going to be able to download these multi-tracks. As part of the package, there's 3 kick drum mics, and this is number 1. Now this was an outside, that I should tell you that it was inside the drum. That's an Audix mic that they travel with. It's inside the shell of the drum. I don't know exactly how far from the head it is or anything, because we couldn't see it. The port on the drum is tiny. That said, we have a kick out, which we likely won't use. And then we have a kick in. And that was a B52 at the port. But because the hole was so small, we couldn't really get it in very, very far. So it's kind of almost another outside mic with just a little more articulation. But when you download the multi-track package, you're going to see those options. Okay, and I will not use my hands-on control surface. I'm going to have to try to force myself not to, so you can follow the mouse on the screen. Let's get busy EQing. Take a little of that out. Make that 60 cycles. Let's see what we have there. Sometimes I like to check bell because I'm boosting right at 60, whereas a shelf, you know, the 60 may be the peak of it, but everything before 60 is getting sloped as well, and then everything after 60 is it's, you know, it's linear. So instead of doing this, it's just plateaued. So I sometimes I like to check on toms, a kick drum, and a snare drum, between bell and shelf, which one sounds better. And I'm going to go with bell for this. Okay, let's see how that is going to combine with the sample that I've laid in there. Okay, let's thin that out a little. So for this particular sample, if I get up here, it's a little too plasticky. See how that sounds. Maybe take a little point off of it, you know, because I don't remember that Journey song being all that pointy. Like I said, I'm not really trying to chase that, but still, I kind of want to honor it in a sense as well. Now I'm going to try using more of the live versus the sample. Yeah, I really like that sample. Blended in with just enough of that inside mic that it doesn't sound like sound replacer. It sounds, you know, it's the sample and the real drum working together. So I still hear the differences in dynamics and pitch as the, you know, like elements like this, where the kick drum is not as loud on the ba-bum. You know, I want to hear it that way because the beat or slap sounds entirely different. Okay, let's go back to this big section, and what I'm going to do is mute G and K so I can focus in on just the drums for a minute, and let's get some snares happening. Okay, it's bright, high-pitched, and ringy, which of course is nothing like the original. Not that that matters, but let's just kind of touch on it a little bit. And one thing I will do is I'm going to engage the Jensen input right here. Kind of show you what pushing it too far does. I mean, it really levels it out, right? And remember, I'm not going to spend very much time with this, but we do have this impedance option right here, which really changes the tonality of things. So that's a tool there if you want it. All right, let's just start getting busy with the EQ. I'm gonna boost a little 5K. And a little 10K. Little body at around 200. I'm gonna leave it on the shelf. Let's just check out that ring. There we go. I'm gonna notch that just a little. Okay, now one thing about the dynamic section of SSL consoles was the noise gate was actually quite good. So if I want to reduce a little bit of that, let's just kind of, well, let's go too much. Let's go like 10, 15 dB. And I'll just turn it down to, you know, maybe 5, 6 decibels of reduction to just get rid of a little bit of that hi-hat bleed and whatnot. I'm going to shorten the sustain a little bit with release. Okay, before I get too carried away, I want to put the bottom mic in with it because we get so much snare sound, literal snare sound, you know, the snare strainers themselves out of the bottom. I'm going to use a little 3.7, little 8, and I'm going to make this 80 as well. I'll probably do the same thing here. Get rid of a little of the kick drum bleeding in there, and we may do a little compression thing. Let's hear those together. Yeah, we definitely need a little of that. And now, here's the snare sample that I laid in there to pay homage a little bit to the original, a little bit deeper sound. Let's thin out a little body. Add just a touch of 5K, maybe a touch of 10K, just a touch. I'm going to take this up to 80 as well. And let's put that with the real snare. So we're going to have the sound of the original snare in there with the sample. So that sounds a little bit more appropriate for the Journey cover to me. So let's roll with that. Now, one of the things I like to work on next is overheads. And one thing I'm going to do right away, go to fast attack, about 3:1 on the ratio, fastest release possible, and get a little compression. Okay, I'm going to go up to about 80 cycles on the overheads as well. I could make them a little more exciting. A little less of that. I'm going to hear the release slow down. I just want to kind of, either I use, when it comes to overheads, I either use the release as fast as possible, which is 100 milliseconds, or closer to 1 second. And just see how the cymbal sustain sounds. hate that, but I do have it a little too bright. I'm going to take that top end boost off. Okay, let's work on some tom-toms. Let's see what we got here. So we got 3 of them. I'm just going to go down to the end of the song and check those out. And let me put it in loop. And it's not looping. Let's see why not. Here we go. Try it again. Let's add a little attack. And let's also add a little low end. And let's set this to around 70 or so. Yeah, let's put a little microphone preamp juice on it. Yeah, we're making a nice difference. And what we will do is we're going to use the regular attack, not the fast. Go 3 to 1, 4 to 1 or so, fastest release possible, and get a little extra punch. And the way it creates extra punch is because the 30 milliseconds it takes for the time for the compressor to kick in lets that transient pop through before it clamps down, so it sounds even punchier. There's with and without the compressor. Yeah, let's hear that in the track. Well, you know what? Let's just work on all 3 of these at once. And what I'm going to do, I'll probably just take and copy this over just for the sake of time and just kind of change what we need to, but that way our compression is set the same. Okay, here we go. Some boxiness right there. Yeah, let's start there. And then we'll try, here's a floor tom, the second floor tom. I'm gonna sweep that a little more. Quite a range that we could choose, but I think centering it around 740. Combined with that 4.5K that we've been adding to attack and 10K-ish that we're adding to the air. Yeah, I think now a little extra thwack with the compressor. Yeah, that's serving us well, I think. Now let's pan them out just a little bit. I know the way this kit was laid out. So, oh, we're getting a little toasty there on our output. That's actually what I want to do. I want to talk about this for a second. SSL plugins model the VCA section, the DBX VCA, which has a sound, and I want that. So what I generally do, if I'm getting clipping from, remember the makeup gain in these compressors is part of the sound, and I really love that. So even though you can go in there and change the makeup gain, I want it to be true to the console. So I'll just trim the output in the digital world here before I trim it right there, even though it's harder because it's easy to pull that down. I want the sound of that VCA at Unity. Okay. Oh, he only hits, okay, that's about the only time he hits those toms. Now let's put them in with the overheads. Okay, they sound great in with the overheads. Get a little space on them. Fantastic. Let's see if we want a little room ambience in there. It's a great sounding room. Let's, I'm going to mute that bass guitar for a minute and just kind of feather this in there and see what it sounds like. Okay, now this is a little trick that okay, so you definitely hear flamming. And so sometimes what I do is I'll create a duplicate playlist on the rooms and just call it the edit version. And what I'll do is try to match it up to the timing of the overheads. And when the kick drum hits, okay, well, I think they start with a, yeah, there we go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this up in time to match the overheads. I'm going to hear the snare in there when the snare's really going. Okay, I'm getting just a little less flamming, because I'm not going to use a lot of this room, but I am going to cut some of the high frequencies out of it. Some extreme lows as well. We could always go like 4-to-1 or something like that, fastest release, fast attack, and get a little extra compression. Which I'd like the way that's handling the transients. So we're getting the extension, the room is adding a little of extension to the low end of the kick drum. Yeah, I like it. Okay. It's a mono, another room mic. Yeah, I don't think I need to use that one. Let's check the hi-hat though. We've ignored him. I'm getting a decent amount in the overheads, but let's check it out. I definitely like it. Better with it in there. So let's see what we want to do here. Let's I mean, you know, it's a hi-hat. There's nothing under a couple hundred cycles that we want. So let's do fast attack, about 3-to-1, fastest release. And what I like to do, not always, but if it's an issue, most of the time what you find is the snare drum can be really hot in the overheads. So by getting a little bit of compression at fast attack on the snare drum backbeats, it knocks the snare drum back just a little bit. Of course, he's really not playing hi-hat there. He's playing the ride cymbal. Yeah, we're really not having that problem here. So my positioning on the hi-hat mic must have been effective. All right, so let's talk about the sound of it though, if it needs any EQ work. Just a little fullness right there. Yeah, I definitely like that in there. Okay. Now what we want to do is, what I want to do rather, is take and add a little of the kick drum to this alternate, the squisher, this parallel. So I'm going to add the sample at this moment and the snare drum. I'll add the real snare drum and the sample right here. Okay, now I'm going to try the live snare, or the live kick. I think that one works better. Okay, now let's feather that in with the dry, unaffected drums. Okay, a little less of the sample. Yeah, I think that's a bigger, better drum sound than what we had. Now, what I'll do is I'll go over here to my drum bus and make sure I'm getting a little bit of compression. Yeah, let's just start there. Okay, that's sounding pretty good. The bass sounds great as is. You can tell he's got the phase flange thing going on that the original had. So there's just a couple things I may do here. I may see where brings out a little grit and definition, but we've got quite a bit of definition already, so I don't know that we need a lot. Liking that 3K. And let's turn this up to about 40 on the high pass. And you know, really I'm going to engage the low pass as well, because there's nothing up here in the top octave that we want on the bass guitar. I'm going to experiment with the pre though. About right there. Yeah. And one thing that I like about this channel strip that I also like about various other SSL emulations, or even things that's not SSL, is a lot of times if I want to cut something in the bass, you know, it's below 200. Sometimes it's around 180 or whatnot. Whereas you'll see we the lowest we can go is 200. What if I wanted to go to 180? I can switch to the pink knob and choose this LMF times 3, and you see I can reach all the way down into 700 cycles. So if I wanted to check at 180 cycles, what it'd sound like to, you know, cut a little mud, that I could by switching to the pink knob. But I don't think we're having that problem with this guitar. It's really fitting in there pretty well. You know what I may do? I may experiment with a little of the SSL compression though. Go a little faster on my release. Let's try 250. What? Whoops. What'd I do? 0.25. Here we go. Let's build this around the electric guitar, because that's the keys were really prominent in this song. The electric guitar, even though it was really just the one stereo pass, at least what I remember. I just feel like that's like the kind of the memorable part to me. When I think of this song, that's kind of what I think of. I think of that more than I mean, as much as I do Steve Perry practically, which is saying, you know, it's saying a lot. Okay, so one thing that I'm going to bring into this is on my template. I'm going to bring up this other row here. I have some of the tools from my template are in here, even though this is the Back to the Basics series where I'm not going to, you know, get overwhelmed with tools. One tool that I really do like on bass is this Soothe 2. I don't know if I've showed this trick as part of the Back to the Basics series or not, but the kick drums are feeding a side chain. The side chain is the Soothe is set to see this input right here. It's keying to this. So every time the kick drum hits, watch what happens. So it's a way to create a little extra punch and separation from the kick drum to the bass guitar. And I find sometimes I can use my bass guitar a little louder and a little thicker in the mix, you know, that I maybe normally couldn't. because it's dominating the kick drum a little too much and fighting a little too much, all of a sudden the fight's gone in a way that it's completely inaudible. And I may even experiment with a little extra bottom end here. A little extra fullness out of the bass guitar. Yeah, I'm really liking that. Okay, let's see. I mean, what do you do to that? I mean, that sound is great. So one thing about mixing, it's a really valuable lesson for all of us sometimes, is just, it sounds great, like hardly touch it. So what we will do, just for safety, is we know there's going to be subharmonics in there. So just to keep that away from our kick and our snare and our stereo bus, we're going to go ahead and set this up to around 80, because there's nothing down there that we need on the electric guitar. The only thing I will check up in it, do we need just a little bit of clarity, just a tiny bit of, by clarity, I think we could get clarity by adding some definition. Of course, we all know the 8K is a magic thing on the older SSL consoles, the 4Ks, whether it's an E or a G. 8K is just a magic spot because that top octave was just a little soft, and that's why we could get by with boosting it, on a console that, like the 9K, for example, the later SSL. You can't do that because the high end is so represented that it'll make your ears bleed. Yeah, I like that. It's just a little too much, so I'm going to cut it back a tiny bit, but I like the idea. I like the clarity we're getting. All right, let's talk about keyboards. So we have our main piano pass here. And if I remember right, the piano sounds on these records were a little bright. So let's go up to around 6K, which is a great spot for a piano to cut through on attack. Say flat. So you really hear that hammer hitting the notes. So, I mean, of course, that's a little too aggressive, but that's the idea. If I wanted to cut anything, it'd be right there, but I don't know if that we need to. Once we get this guy kicked up to about 90 hertz. Okay, what it could use is a little compression. So let's kind of see what sounds good on this. So remember, fast attack is 1 millisecond. Regular attack is 30 milliseconds. Both are very effective on piano depending on what you want out of it on the SSL. So that on the fast attack, you wouldn't have your threshold way up here. You'd back it down and see less movement. Because what movement you do see is going to be very stern. It's going to be very firm. Yeah, let's hear those big hits right there. Okay, now that I've heard it with the guitar and the bass, I am going to cut a little bit. Right there, 360. Did you see that? All of a sudden, it's like setting into the track just a little bit. It was fighting a little bit, and now it's not. Simple, old-fashioned. We've had this technology for decades. Tone shaping, just subtle tone shaping, is such a powerful tool. Let's check out this whistle track. That's so 80s. I love it. It reminds me of Journey and Foreigner too. Now, one thing, you know, about records, modern records, we're recording to DAWs now. So it's very full range audio. We don't have that softening of tape. And I feel like it's a little harsh. It's a little close sounding to us. So let's cut off some of that top octave or two. Make it sound a little further away from us. Oh, it's so much better. Check out the difference. Right now. It's more distant, a little more haunting, which was what it was supposed to be. So again, you know, there's nothing. I mean, it's a high-pitched whistle. There's nothing below 100 cycles that we're going to want, even though it may be down there. So I'm just going to go ahead and set this for safety. No compression needed. I don't think we need to do anything else. The only other thing we could do if we wanted is identify the let's call it the punch of the whistle, even though, I mean, it doesn't have punch, but I think you'll know what I mean when I find it. Right there. So if we wanted to, we could go lean a little broad, like to the 0.1 on the octave or on the Q. And we could soften that a little bit if it starts poking out just a little too much. Which what that would allow us to do is actually turn it up a little. Actually, I quite like that, so we're going to leave it like that. That was a good move, wasn't it, Perry? Did you like that move?
I loved it.
Perry is our cameraman today. Perry actually interned with me for, gosh, I don't know, several months out of Blackbird Academy. So, but he has just recently moved, and so we're gonna miss Perry. But anyway, he's been great for videos and helping out around the studio, setting up mics and all that good stuff. So, best of luck to you, Perry, in your new city. All right, here we go. Okay. Okay, so we need that guy to be fairly prominent. I'm not going to go back to the original and listen, but I kind of feel like this guy was very impactful. So let's bring out a little attack, a little I use the word enunciation, and it's not a vocal, but I think you know what I mean. Articulation, definition. Right there, around 5K, just a little above there. Let's go kind of wide. Let's just broaden our cue here. Let's also try some of that 8K air. And I think we could cut that everything below 80 cycles or so out. Okay, it's pretty wide. Okay, I think maybe here's a cool trick. There's a plugin that Waves makes called Center that's kind of an MS thing. And what I want to do is I want to expand the sides and reduce the mids just a little bit. Turn the high frequency up here and check out the difference. Definitely putting the energy out in the extremes of the speakers just a little bit more, which I kind of think maybe I want. Okay, I'm kind of debating on a little compression on this guy. Let's use regular attack, 3-to-1. Let's go around 300 milliseconds on the release, and I keep typing it in wrong. 0.300. There we go. Get some of that richness and tone. Because this is a great sounding circuit. I have been a fan of, from the first time I ever used them, SSL channel strip compression circuits. I just think they're amazing. I know I've been in, being here in Nashville, getting to go into some great rooms and not only work myself, but also go into some great rooms where some iconic people like Chuck Ainley, for example, here in Nashville, has been working on George Strait records and things like that, and getting to talk to him about what he was doing. And these little channel strip compressors were lighting up all over the console. Not heavy, but they were flickering all over the place. I mean, it's just to me, it's just a huge part of the sound of modern music is this section right here of an SSL. Okay, I like that. Now let's check out what we have going on back here. We have it says strings. Okay, it says strings, but it's really it's a synth pad. Okay, right now it's just too murky and muddy. So let's just start thinning it. Right around here, let's get rid of some of that. Let's go up to 75 cycles or so on this extreme low end. I mean, otherwise it's going to be competing with the bass guitar, and we don't need that in our lives. Now let's look for a little articulation, a little air. I don't think I'm going to add it here first. I think my first instinct is going to be to add it here. Okay, now let's find it. Right in there, but let's broaden that cue. Let's just go kind of subtle. Okay, and this is another one where I feel like the center. Yeah, that's doing a great thing for us. One really cool thing about working with these guys, they've labored so much on their sounds. You know, the reverbs and delays and things are already built into most all of these samples. So really the only thing we need to do is probably add a little reverb to the drums. But one thing that I'm recognizing is that the choruses, or I'm sorry, the verses and the intro are really carried by a cross stick sound. And the cross stick sound of that drum really wasn't awesome to me. So yes, I dropped in a sample. I know some people hate sample replacement, but I'm sorry. I think it sounds better now with that guy in there. And what do you do to that guy? Really not much of anything. We could add a little of articulation if we wanted to. Let's set our high pass filter to 80. Wanted a little of that, with 8K we could. But let's feather this guy in there. See without it. The cross stick sound just isn't impressive to me. It's very round. But what you could do when you get these, in fact, let me just give you this. I'm going to give you this stick sample track so you have it. But what you can do if you wanted to, the old trick of separating, right? So you separate on all these spots and take the stick sound to one track and the snare sound to another, so you could EQ the stick sound really heavily because it needs a lot of attack, a lot of definition. So you could do that if you wanted to. But you'll also see, dynamically it's all over the place. So by laying in a consistent sample, I just get a better, I'm more impressed with it. And at the end of the day, that's what I'm trying to do. With my mixing, I'm trying to impress myself and make me happy, so that when I send it to the client, that I know that they're happy. Okay, now I remember there was a lot of reverb. Let's put the reverb on the yeah, we're gonna have to put it on the sample too. Let's check out the snares. I don't think I'm liking that body. Now that, you know, you add a little warm reverb to it, and that body that I added at 200 cycles sounded good in solo, but in the mix, I'm not liking it. Okay, that's quite a bit of reverb for modern songs. For the original, it's honestly not it's not even enough. But we're gonna leave it there, because that's enough to make me happy without feeling like I'm you know, actually living in the 80s again. So let's see. Let's turn these to to follow main pan, and let's put a little reverb on these tom toms. Here we go. A little more than that. Carry it over to the other 3 tracks. Okay, what I may do on the tom-toms, I feel like they could get by with a little bit more. So I'm going to turn on follow main pan here, and I'm going to use the second reverb send here, which is an RMX 16. A little more true 80s sustain character. Let's hear that. We need a little more articulation on the stick to compete, you know, to make it sound like it's the same snare drum. The snare drum has more articulation than and more top end than the stick does. So we're going to try to make them match a little bit better when they go back and forth. Okay, now another thing that I do have a ride cymbal. Remember, the whole outro section of this song is played on a ride cymbal. So do we have enough? You know, I don't automatically use the ride if I don't need it, but let's just kind of hear the crashes are in the right level on the overheads now. So let's hear where the rides are in contrast. Yeah, I mean, to me, I need more. Let's get rid of just a little cloudiness. We may try a little soft, fast attack compression. Now let's put it in with the overheads. Yeah, the phase is good and solid. Now let's, of course, I'm panning drummer's perspective, even though the original record, this particular Journey record was panned audience perspective. It's just comfortable for me when I hear those big tom hits. Dun, dun, da, boom. My hand automatically reaches down here for my floor tom, because I'm a drummer. So that's the way I'm going to pan it. So let's just kind of pan the ride a little bit to that side too, and bring it up to tape. Hear that wash and that we're getting, and also some articulation when he gets up on the bell. You know, we were missing that before. Okay, now the thing, and I'm going to give you the full version, but the thing about ride cymbal mics, and the same goes for hi-hats to a point, is that they're adding a lot of things that we don't want when no one's playing the ride cymbal. So okay, so when that cymbal sustains right there, that crash cymbal, I'm going to cut it out. Tab to transient, so it comes in right on that hit right there, you'll see. And okay, those are crashes. And you know, we're not hearing the ride, we're hearing the overheads, because that's what I really am going to make all my decisions based on. Yeah, we can fade down right there. Okay, now what I'll do is I'm going to reconsolidate that and keep that as an edit. And that way all this place, you know, these various places where the ride cymbal isn't even being touched, I don't need that contributing to the drum sound. So only when I need that wash and that articulation of a close spot mic on the ride cymbal will it actually be being heard. Okay, now another thing that I do, and I will go when I start my automation, is we can clearly see where the ride is being played. When they're playing the ride, it's very likely that the hi-hat is making little impact into the production. So what I'll do is match that, and I'll turn down the ride, or I'm sorry, the hi-hat when the ride is playing. Not always. Sometimes they're still doing, you know, they're playing a ride pattern, but still playing the hi-hat as well. So I'll listen before I actually make, you know, big, bold moves like this. But I just kind of want you guys to see the kind of things that I do on a daily basis. This mono room I'm not going to use. We already talked about. The crotch groove enhancer mic. I don't know that I need that on this song, because really the groove don't even really get big until down here. Nah, let's just turn it off. Let's not muddy the waters. Although the download package will include that. Okay, now let's see. I think we've got actually everything in there. I believe so. Great. I think we're off to a great start. Now, one thing that I like to do is really keep tabs on my file management and my track names and all that kind of stuff. So I see that everything is cleanly named and consolidated at this point. So all these little pieces are just when I was doing my sample replacements or enhancements rather, and stuff like that. So I'm going to move all that stuff to the trash, and I'm going to take time now to name all my tracks very clearly. If it, you know, see that stick sample O2, the O2 has no business in there. It has no business in there whatsoever. And this is rooms edit, and this is ride edit. And so that oops, not allowed with okay, there we go. So now all my files are cleanly named. Actually, this room needs reconsolidated. Now I can get rid of that little region and actually name the real audio file edit. So if I decide that I don't really like the timing adjustments that I made, I just flip this playlist and I'm back to the original one, the original set of rooms. It just kind of depends. And I'll suss all that kind of stuff out before I finish this mix. So we're not going to go all the way through this today, or you guys would be with me for 2.5 hours, and I don't think anyone has time for that. Okay, now that I have a nice tidy session, I can look at the screen and it looks nice. It is nice. All the track names are great. At this point is where I would kind of start, well, typically I would bring in my vocals and get them sounding really good now that I have a solid bed with the band, and get the vocals to work with that, where everything sounds great at a static level. But we definitely aren't going to have time to dive into a full mix like that today. So what I'm going to kind of show you quickly is what I would do on a day-to-day basis is I'm going to see how I'm clicking and putting little automation points at the front of all my tracks. And let's see, our drum group is on. Yes. So now no matter what I do, what I change, I can always get back to where I was on my rough static levels and where I thought the track sounded good. And I remember that as I get further into the day and further away from where my ears were fresh and all that kind of stuff. But, lots of little things like here in the solo. What sounded good rhythmically for the guitar isn't enough now. I mean, the guitar has got to be the feature. So you got to take time to either get your finger on a fader or a mouse or whatever the case may be, and get in it and make sure the production sounds great at the end of it by things coming up and ducking down when it's time for them to come to the front of the stage, go to the back of the stage, whatever the case may be. So what I would do is I would listen at a low volume on my NS10s. And make sure that everything's perfect. If this one I thought was a little too loud, I'm just going to do that, right? I mean, it's going to take time to make sure that it meets my criteria for awesomeness from beginning to end. And I'll maybe do a little stereo bus automation too, where the choruses, we get a nice lift on the choruses, the verse settles down a little bit, then the solo, back here. It's kind of built into the arrangement that the song gets so much bigger here. We probably don't have to work too hard to create the energy there because it's already going to be created for us. But what a great song this is. What a classic. And speaking of classics, what a great channel strip this is from SSL, the 4KG. I'm glad we got to use it today. Glad you got to see it. It's just part of their great family of plugins. And I hope you guys enjoy these multi-tracks. I know I sure enjoyed recording them. What a great guys, a great band of guys. Remember, this is Resurrection, a Journey tribute. They go all over the country. I don't really know how much they tour outside of the country. They may not. I don't know. But you can follow them on Instagram and Facebook and places like that. Kind of see their tour schedule on their website. And when they're in your area, go out and say hello if you're a Journey fan. And even if they don't come to your area, go follow them and just let them know how grateful you are that they came into the studio and to donate these multi-tracks just for educational purposes. So I hope you guys enjoy them. And I guess that's about all I have for today. All right. Have a great week. Happy mixing.